my approach to this was not to assume I knew where AI would go immediately, and not to assume even that customers knew what they wanted. So this is an interesting thing, especially in the world of AI, is something I believe is I don't think customers can tell you what AI product you should build, because AI is changing how the architecture of everything.
Hi there, this is Vijay Damojipurapu, and you're listening to the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast. The show where I go behind the scenes with top go-to-market practitioners to discuss their mindset and tactics. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the latest and first episode in the year 2026. Thank you once again. I know you have so many options. You can do so many other things, but you actually took the time to listen to this podcast, and I'm ever so grateful for that. With that, I have yet another amazing guest on this podcast for you. So today's guest is Joseph Sirosh. He is the founder and CEO of CreatorsAGI. He's had a very storied, exceptionally amazing career track record, and we'll dive straight into the conversation. So with that, Joseph, welcome to the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast.
Vijay, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And I'm sure the listeners will get so many insights and lessons from your amazing experience. I won't break the surprise for the listeners yet, but I'm sure they'll know as they listen. So with that, my first question, and I always open the show with this, which is, how do you view and define go-to-market?
Thank you, Vijay. Vijay, I've been an AI executive now for almost 30 years. Uh, B2B products have been mostly my specialty. I was a leader at FICO, at Amazon, at Microsoft as a corporate vice president of Azure Machine Learning, then the CTO at Compass, and then running Alexa Shopping at Amazon, and now my own company. I define GTM, especially in B2B, as defining your ideal customer profile who will find your product attractive, then explaining the product's value to them in the most differentiated way possible, and how your product is uniquely set up to answer their needs. So that process might involve discovery as well, understanding their needs, but there's always a kernel of differentiation that you bring uniquely that should make you the unique fit for that ideal customer profile. How do you get that across? That's GTM, in my opinion.
Fantastic. Yeah. So that's a unique perspective. And again, that's what I enjoy about having these conversations with the various guests is given their background and experience, each guest brings their perspective on how they view GTM. And to your point, if I have to summarize what you mentioned, Joseph, is defining the ICP, understanding your unique value proposition and bringing that to the market and serving the ICP.
Right. That's the number one and most important thing. Everything else follows. You
Yeah.
will have sales preparation, sales calls, but every time you would be identifying and positioning your unique differentiation, how you create value in the world to your very clear box of ideal customers. Rest of the market doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. And something else that I have realized personally over my decade plus in the GTM world, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and I've seen that resonate with a lot of the go-to-market leaders, is go-to-market is never once and done. It's never standing. It's very similar to how a product evolves. And a lot of times, especially folks who have not been in the product world, uh, they may not get that instinctively. But I just want to surface this and want to get your thoughts as well as go to market is never stationary.
Yeah, go to market is a core part of your company's motion, just as much as product development, product engineering, all of those are. We can even take any major product that we are familiar with. Let's just take GPUs as an example, right?
Hmm.
NVIDIA is the hottest product in the world.
Yeah.
NVIDIA is not trying to sell their AI GPUs to anyone but the core group of customers, the hyperscalers who will build AI servers. And it's just that group. And
Yeah.
it's a very complex product. And they're selling that. And they have a very standing, ongoing go to market motion explaining the value of what they're bringing to market, their roadmap. In fact, they even project the roadmap. So
Yeah.
this is an important part, especially in business to be business, right? I think your end customers want to see a future that you're leading them to.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Uh, so the other angle I also wanted to highlight, and I'm sure you can relate to this a lot more because you've been in the hyperscaler world yourself personally, and now you have started your own company. So GTM as a very, very early stage startup versus GTM at a hyperscaler is massively different and it evolves.
Exactly. And my own experience and my own conviction in the short term is in that phase, your networks matter.
Yeah.
I think it's personal selling. It's the trust that you have. So I was fortunate that there is a network of people, executives and others that I know for a very long time and from Microsoft I've connected to. And when I go have a conversation with them, it's not even marketing. I'm just showing this
Right.
is what I built.
Yeah.
This is the unique value. And there's a certain level of trust that is the underlying foundation for that conversation. And B2B businesses, I believe, are built on a foundation of trust. I
Absolutely.
think it is different from consumer apps in that way, in a very big way, because business to business, in fact, if you look at even the buying process, that is very clear. In a typical larger procurement business to business, it's not just your champion that is involved. There's a finance person, there's a legal person, there's an IT person. They are all qualifying your product to develop trust in the product because you're going to go implement that product and take a bet on it as a business.
Yeah.
And so the trust creation, not only an interpersonal trust, but between the vendor and the customer, that itself is an integral part of the purchase process.
Yeah.
So one just has to be aware of that when we talk about go to market.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that trust, I think, is a very huge factor here for sure. Because, yes, at one level, it's the trust being established between two businesses. But at another level, the buyer or the one or two buyers who have championed your product, they are taking a bet on their career as well, in many times.
Exactly.
So
And
that's, again, the trust factor is huge at a personal level as well.
yeah, may I share a story from the past?
Yeah, sure.
So very early on in my career, I was at this company called Agency Software, which later became FICO. So its product was credit card fraud detection using neural networks.
Mhm.
And we would deploy the product in the authorization systems of credit card companies and catch fraud instantly when the transaction happens. And that was a big win. I created a big savings for the end customers. But one of the things that you would see in that market is there was a champion who would bring the product was called Falcon, into the business, and they would realize those savings. Immediately, of course, their career would advance and they would be very happy. And they would then go to the next bank and repeat the same process.
Yeah,
And so the champion became successful. They actually got another great opportunity at the next company that was competing.
exactly. Yeah.
There they went ahead and repeated the exact same
Yes.
process of buying Falcon again.
Yeah,
And there are many people who build their careers on the purchase of that product.
for sure.
Now, that's your ideal case. You want people who build careers on your product and realize value for themselves and their company.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. And actually, that's a good segue into expanding into our next topic, which is if you can share with our listeners around your career, like day one of your career journey, professional journey, and the transitions and what led you to what you're doing today. That'll be great.
My first job after my PhD, which was in neural networks, was in San Diego with a company called Agency Software.
Mhm.
That was the first machine learning company ever to go public. I think very few people know this. This was in 95. And they had a very high value product built from neural networks, in fact, but it did this very simple task of when a credit card transaction comes, you score it with a neural network and assess the probability of it being fraudulent. And if fraudulent, you had a step to just deny the transaction. It saved a lot of money.
Yeah.
So my GTM experience there was very interesting. I had asked the question, hey, how did you sell the product?
Mm-hmm.
And the early stories of that are still very enduring. So in the beginning, H&G Software had a neural networks workbench. They would go to conferences, trade conferences, and show it in booths and demonstrate what it can do, how you can train neural networks. Believe it or not, neural networks were hot in the 90s.
Yeah.
There was a period when it came up.
Yes.
And what happened there was when one of those, a bank customer came and they asked the question, hey, can this be used for credit card fraud detection? So the customer brought the problem. They had a pilot and they discovered that, yes, we can actually detect fraud. Now, that was not the intention to begin with, but when they found, yes, there's a high value problem, you can actually save money. The end customer has money to pay.
Yeah.
So you are able to qualify that this customers, financial services customers, banks, credit card issuers, they would actually pay money for actually a system that stops fraud.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the company pivoted to that as the single-threaded focus. So
Nice.
they were not selling a general purpose neural networks workstation anymore. They were now selling a packaged credit card fraud detection product.
Nice.
And that was the big step change.
Mm-hmm.
So my initial journey, I was at the company, was I was a scientist. I then became a director. I became the head of R&D and so on. And there were many products like this. It was I was developing technology. There were teams that would productize, and they would make the product very vertical and target it to this one box of customers who wanted it.
Yeah.
Banks that wanted it either for fraud detection or for bankruptcy prediction. That was another problem.
Yeah.
So you could save money, or credit limit increases. You
Mm-hmm.
could just set the right limit so that you don't actually lose a customer. You maximize the probability of success in the portfolio.
Yeah.
So those are examples. Okay, so I may pause there, by the way, to see, Vijay, if there are any questions. Then there's many other stories like this that I can tell you through my AI product development career.
No, absolutely. I mean, I know we start going down this path because of like bringing our listeners and enlightening us on your career journey. So I see on your LinkedIn, yes, HNC and which became Fair Isaac. Is that right? Or is it
Correct.
a
Yeah.
merger? Okay.
It was a merger. Fair Isaac,
Yeah.
FICO is a company, big
Correct.
company now, right?
Yeah.
Credit card, credit scoring, credit card fraud detection, all
Yeah.
of those.
Absolutely. So one question just on that journey of yours. You mentioned about a box being customized for a use case. So am I reading this right? Where is it? It's a hardware product?
No,
Or
I'm talking about the software package.
oh, okay. Yeah.
In
Back in
the
the days, it
beginning,
was all packaged software for sure.
yeah, it was
Yes.
all packaged software. Packaged software that was actually installed at the bank.
Got it. Understood. And from there, your next step was into Amazon. Is that right?
That's right. So I was running R&D at Fair Isaac, FICO,
Mm-hmm.
and Bezos reached out through a recruiting effort. And they were at the time growing the marketplace, and they had seen how much fraud was happening in B2B in eBay.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of fraudulent sellers on eBay at the time, duping customers and not delivering product. And they saw this as a huge problem for Amazon, as well as their third-party sellers
Yeah.
were growing. So only way to solve the problem at scale was to use AI, to use neural networks. So they were looking for an AI expert who understood this, been there, that. I joined, and I grew um, the transaction risk management group. I built that managed fraudulent risk and trust risk on every aspect of Amazon, whether it be people buying with stolen cards,
Mm-hmm.
purchases, or
Yep.
sellers selling products, fencing products, gift cards, digital purchases on Kindle,
Mm-hmm.
sign-ups on AWS that were fraudsters trying to get compute,
Right.
the end-to-end. And so the goal there was to develop AI systems that sat in these high volume transaction flows and protected those transactions. So that was more of a consumer oriented thing, but it was in many ways engineering behind the scenes. I
Right.
had a team of um, data scientists, machine learning scientists, engineers, even a very large operations staff worldwide.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I found unique was I could now stitch all the different elements of that operation, from people actually investigating these fraudulent transaction cases to those are like customer service associates, to machine learning scientists, data scientists, engineers, to build the complete system and operate it in the most efficient way using data and AI.
Understood. So, for many of the listeners, of course, nowadays people can relate to and understand neural networks and AI, but and with ChatGPT, I mean, ChatGPT really made it popular about 3, 4, 5 years ago. But until then, neural networks, machine learning, AI was either mostly in research phases or research institutions, or as you said, it's been more in the commercial side, but for at scale use
Correct.
cases.
There were, until recently, there were only two or three major use cases where it made all the difference. So in the beginning, it was fraud, and then it was bankruptcy prediction. It was machine learning at the time, right? Things like bankruptcy prediction. Then ad targeting when paid ads became big. Then recommendations
Hmm.
on Amazon and elsewhere.
Right.
Then search. For a long time, people don't remember this, but for a long time, search did not have any AI in it at all. But
Hmm.
then neural networks are used to rank search results later. That was around 2012 onwards that it started taking off. And so then search results ranking at targeting became the biggest use cases. And only much later did anything to do with vision, natural language, and all of that. Natural language is a very recent innovation
Yeah.
with LLMs and so on.
Yeah, no, it's a huge topic in itself. And if we go down into the path of ML and AI, that's a whole podcast in itself. But we'll save that for a later time.
Yep.
So continuing your journey, so you were there at Amazon, and then you moved on to Microsoft. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah. I was very excited about the cloud emerging. So I felt AI in the cloud would make AI accessible to everyone, every software.
Mm-hmm.
And Microsoft was on an executive recruiting journey as well. Satya personally was. I was recruited. I joined as the corporate vice president of AI, Azure Machine Learning at the time, and built the first machine learning as a service product in the cloud called Azure Machine Learning. And so that was a SaaS service. There didn't exist, none of that existed before. And so then I spent 5 years at Microsoft running both that and also the database platform, SQL Server, big data,
Mm-hmm.
Hadoop related stuff, streaming analytics, Azure Data Factory,
Yeah.
even Azure Search, which I call renamed to Azure Cognitive Search, which was actually being used in ChatGPT after I left, in fact. So that was my portfolio of data and AI at Microsoft for the next 5 years.
Understood. So you obviously worked at two large, well-known brands. Uh, we won't go too much into it, but at a public information level, like what differences did you see in terms of Amazon's and Jeff Bezos' vision and culture versus Microsoft and Satya Nadella's culture and vision? Especially, maybe let's nail it down into AI specifically for now.
It is about a very incredible focus on application that was there at Amazon. So remember, Amazon came up through the DNA of retail operations and
Right.
driving efficiency everywhere.
Yeah.
So every investment in Amazon was very metric driven and business outcome driven. I think Microsoft came through the developer platform world.
Correct.
So every focus in Microsoft was very developer innovation focused.
Mm.
So you develop platforms for developers to adopt. Azure Machine Learning being an example, or SQL Server. You're building SQL Server not for your own internal use cases and a business outcome that comes out of SQL Server's operations. It is for a product that is sold to another customer, a SaaS vendor or others, who would build that into the product and have a long-term dependency on that. That drove different value systems.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think that's the root of it. And people talk at many different levels about Amazon versus Microsoft, one culture versus another. But at the root of it is their DNA, how they grew and how they think about growing. So even with AWS, right, when that was invented, even though it's a developer platform, there was this incredible outcome focus on everything.
Mm.
You drove it with metrics. Now, it
Yeah.
so happened that in the cloud world, because everything is live, everything is
Correct.
operations, that approach actually in the beginning had a very unique differentiation because they were very focused on delivering compute as a service or
Yeah.
storage as a service with incredible reliability, uptime, availability, and ease of use. And that works in that model. In package software model, it's a very different game.
Totally.
And then Microsoft over time really realized SaaS is a different model. And as they adopted, and they really learned from Amazon in a big way and hired people, including me, who brought many of those DevOps intensity
Hmm.
to products and DevOps intensity to product development and even go to market.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is another way of thinking about it, right? GTM today for SaaS products is a DevOps thing.
Hmm. Yeah.
And product-led growth is a different way of saying this is
Correct.
DevOps for product growth.
Yes. Yes. This is the first time I'm actually hearing someone say that applying the DevOps lens on go-to-market. And it'll be good if you can spend like 30 seconds or so, Joseph, just expanding on why you say that. That's a unique point of view, by the way. And I would love to get that out of your head and into our listeners.
Yeah. Well, if you think about what DevOps is in the engineering world, you are not just shipping software, you're shipping a service.
Mhm.
You develop a product, you put in telemetry on it, you have incredible metrics on how that product is performing.
Yeah.
You have it deployed. There's an entire process of CI/CD to ensure reliable deployment, and you're constantly deploying to the external customer. And you have an SRE to monitor it, for example, meaning support monitoring. You're constantly looking at the friction in every step of that product, dramatically reducing the friction. And so the developers are owning the product experience as a service. You are designing services. This is service design thinking
Yeah.
as opposed to product design. So
Hmm.
that's what DevOps is in engineering. So when you think about go-to-market engagement, especially in product-led growth,
Yeah.
what equivalent of that? Your organization as a whole is taking a very similar approach to building features for the end customer and pushing it live.
Right.
You're ensuring it is monitored so carefully that you know it has the lowest friction possible.
Yeah.
It is easiest to adopt. You're looking at the funnel. You're looking at all the friction points in the funnel. You're figuring out ways to eliminate the friction so that a customer encountering you on the website and walking through the journey gets to value as quickly as possible. And your entire DevOps around the product is oriented towards making that time to value as quick as possible and as rewarding as
Right.
possible. And so really you are operating the marketing. It
Yeah.
is truly DevOps
Correct.
marketing. It's
Yeah.
actually truly operating an engine that, every single day becomes better for the customer.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into the different X-led growth motions of go-to-market. And personally, I was actually brought in as an interim leader for product-led growth at a Series B startup a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And to your point, for me, it was always about measuring and conveying the focus and the urgency to the development team around how can someone who signed up for a free trial of your product on a website, how can they quickly realize value within a day or two max?
Yeah,
If you're gone beyond that, that's we lost them.
correct.
That's been the constant focus.
Exactly. That is exactly right. Now, there is sales-led growth as well,
Yeah.
which I think is complementary. So let me explain where. And so there's nothing wrong with sales-led growth. It fits in a different sector of B2B.
Yeah.
Let's take a great example of NVIDIA's GPUs. I'm just taking that so just so different.
Yes.
No one, no purchaser, no builder can go try
Yeah,
an NVIDIA
for
GPU,
sure. Yeah.
and you can't do a DevOps on NVIDIA GPU experience.
Yeah.
It is a very meaty product that has to be explained, and the way the sale happens is it's not just a sale and walk away. It is, and not just sell and let you do whatever you want with it.
Right.
It is a partnership. And when you're building an enduring B2B partnership with a customer, then what you're doing is rather different in nature from product-led growth. You
Right.
have certain things from product-led growth you can bring in there, but here you have to have direct engagement through sales or through engineers or the developers or the product owners themselves actually explaining the product.
Yeah.
You know, Jensen, by the way, is technical.
Yes.
Jensen does many of the sales.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think he's the CEO. So it's a different character of the product. So sales-led growth is for products that are not immediate value realizers. It is a partnership with an end customer, which it requires a certain heavy lift of install, workflow changes,
Mm-hmm.
re-engineering a process in the company,
Yeah.
which is also time consuming, and then they realize the value. And that, by the way, takes also a much higher bar of trust as well, and conviction that the amount of time the business would invest in that particular transformation is actually worth doing so, and that vendor is trustable. That's
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
case that matters.
Yeah, totally right. I mean, that's where I think a very important point, which is the go-to-market is largely defined by your product and the value you bring to the ICP and how you do it. So you can do product-led growth or sales-led growth, and then you add layer on other aspects like partner-led growth, community-led growth, and so on. But I think that's a wrap up on this specific topic, which is you have the product, you have the ICP, and you layer on go-to-market motions, which connects the two dots between the product and the ICP. Yeah. So great. So you had an amazing ride at Microsoft, and then you transitioned into Compass and then Amazon and then Creators AGI. So
Yeah.
if you can share that and connect the dots for us.
You know, life is a set of great experiences, right, Vijay? That's what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So at the time in 2018, uh, LLMs had not yet taken off, but what had taken off was platforms
Mm-hmm.
like Airbnb, Uber, and there was this excitement at the time about platform flywheels
Yeah.
being a very incredible driver of future experience of all types.
Mm-hmm.
Platforms have multiple sides. In the case of Uber, there are Uber drivers and
Yeah.
passengers, and there's a product in the middle that allows you to connect the two, right? The supply and demand.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really excited about that in real estate. And Compass was the company that had actually raised them over a billion, 1.2 billion in SoftBank funding to go with the platform model to real estate. And the platform players were real estate agents in the platform and buyers and sellers. So there were two sides. It was like a real estate agents serve both buyers and
Mm-hmm.
real estate agents serve sellers to list
Yeah.
their homes. So I was very excited about it. And then bringing all of the AI capabilities to enable that platform to operate extremely effectively. So I joined in 2018 as a CTO of Compass. And over the next 3 years, our revenue at the company, even partly driven by the COVID tailwind, went from 800 million of revenue, this was commission revenue, to 6.4 billion in the next 3 years, 8x.
Wow.
And we went IPO on the New York Stock Exchange in April 2021. By the way, that turned out to be the peak of the real estate market, unfortunately, but it was a good timing.
Yeah.
And then I was there for a year. And by that time, AI had just gone through the roof. I mean, AI had transformed,
Right.
and I had seen, even this was before ChatGPT, but the power of LLMs was very visible. And so
Mm.
now I had the calling to go back into my roots of AI,
Yeah.
and I joined my Amazon back as the head of Alexa shopping.
Got it.
And there I built the Rufus chatbot. That's the most visible thing,
Hmm.
which is Amazon's LLM chatbot on the Amazon side that you can talk to for shopping, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the catalog, understanding the product, understanding all the characteristics of the product. There, you're using LLMs and all that. Productizing that was my accomplishment. And I was there for a year. And meanwhile, of course, ChatGPT had come, this thing was taking off. And it was time for me to do my own. That's Creators AGI.
Yeah. So let's get into that. I mean, clearly, if we look back at your career, you've been at scale ups and large hyperscalers and companies. I mean, huge scale, right? I mean, you're talking about millions or even a lot more in terms of users, 100,000s for sure, millions, and even going
Yeah,
to
very
billions
large.
potentially as
Yes,
well, especially for the consumer products. And now you go back to zero customers with your startup.
that's
So
right.
tell us about your transition, why you made the jump, and what is that drive or the urge that that led you to actually make this jump.
So, to make a dent in the universe, there's this famous Steve Jobs saying, right? Your goal should be to make a dent in the
Yeah.
universe. This is from when he was recruiting John Scully of Pepsi. He said, do you want to make sugar water or do you want to make a
Right.
dent in the universe? So I had that calling. I was quite confident in my experiences, and so I joined. And
Yeah.
so this was an opportunity for me to build on, the wealth of accumulated experiences I had on bringing AI to market in a product form. Yeah, zero customers, but my approach to this was not to assume I knew where AI would go immediately, and not to assume even that customers knew what they wanted.
Mm.
So this is an interesting thing, especially in the world of AI, is something I believe is I don't think customers can tell you what AI product you should build,
Yeah.
because AI is changing how the architecture of everything.
Right.
And in the beginning, my goal was, hey, let me put a product together that people can experience and engage with, and that was a creator-oriented product where anyone, like an author, anyone with a podcast, with a video, could come and create an AI companion for their audience
Mhm.
that embodied the knowledge, the wisdom of that book. So it was knowledge intensive. It is not just a regular chatbot or wrap around an LLM. It had RAG, and it had to take the data
Yeah.
of the author. It had to create the right behavior that the author would want the users to experience. And I created an app on mobile phones and on the website for doing that at scale. So it's a platform where you can come to the platform, add some data, and with
Hmm.
no code, publish a chatbot.
Yeah.
And that was my R&D to essentially build it. Now,
Hmm.
even as I was doing it, I was always convinced that B2B is the best place for most startups to create value, because consumer adoption it's very fickle, and driving that
Yes.
is very expensive,
Yeah.
and you need to be very good about it.
Right.
And sometimes lightning strikes and it works. Most of the time lightning doesn't strike, so
Right.
it's a very different beast. But what it gave me was a way to iterate very rapidly and bring all the pieces of a platform together and clarify in my own head what an example of an AI agent would be. I was
Mm.
creating AI agents at that time, even though the word agents hadn't really emerged at the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my first step. And then a year later, I pivoted to what my core area was, B2B. And that point, I had something to show. And here's what I believe. I think when you have B2B conversations, And today, there are so many people having B2B conversations. The standard lean startup approach, etc., today is somewhat challenged.
Yeah.
I think you have to have something to show. You can't
Mhm.
just say, "What if I build this one thing?"
Correct.
It's like it's not that stage right now. So I had something to show, which then I could take customers' data, put it, create an agent that embodied the knowledge of that company, and create an equivalent of a sales agent or a marketing agent.
Right.
And that then led to a design partner, a few design partners attaching myself to them, and even paid B2B pilots where I could now build and tailor for their use case. And so that's the journey that I'm on at this point.
Understood. So that's Creators AGI. So who is your ICP today? And as we spoke earlier, GTM is constantly evolving and it will evolve. But today in 2026, who is your ICP and who do you really serve through Creators AGI?
The sweetest spot for my ICP is vertical SaaS companies and their marketing department.
Mm,
So the what I basically tell them is, what if your best sales engineer was available 24/7,
yep.
always on brand, always on message with perfect memory of every sales conversation? Imagine cloning, your best expertise of sales and clone it across every prospect, every touch point, and deploy it on your website, deploy it in every interaction that you have. So if you can do that, what you're doing is multiplying your sales capability. I mean, today, if you look at the website of any sales SaaS company, it's just very hard for an end customer to understand what the product is. Everybody says the same words.
Yeah.
The words don't communicate. The only way you can make a step change there is, what if an AI agent was actually demonstrating the product to you, like a
Mhm.
sales engineer would? So
Right.
you can actually see it and think about sales-led growth. Okay, I'm not talking about PLG. There are PLG companies, but very few vertical SaaS companies are PLG companies.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Most of them are in the sales-led growth. And there you are going after demonstrating something complex, and it's very hard to do so. And that becomes the bottleneck to the funnel. And now an AI agent can step in and make that sale effortless, actually amplify your salespeople significantly, serve the buying committee and increase trust by providing knowledge, serve the IT as need to know, the finance persons need to know, your champions need to know, everything with the power of all the knowledge and AI can bring.
Yep. Fair enough. So that's a good segue into the next section, which is like a go-to-market success story and a go-to-market pivot story. So either from your time at Creators AGI or from your past, if you can share, I'll let you choose which one you want to lead with, Joseph. You can either start with a success or a pivot story, but let's dive into one of those stories first.
Let me give the Creators AGI example, and I can, of course, share some of the others. So we had a design partner, company called Zenoti, Zenoti. They're a vertical SaaS company serving salons, med spas. Believe it or not, they have a three-digit million revenue,
Hmm.
serving customers all over the world. So they are bottlenecked in the same way that I said, which is they have to reach out to large number of salon and spa customers and sell a complex piece of software.
Yeah.
How do you sell that? So we created an AI agent with videos. It's a video first. So the AI demonstrates through videos and powerful narrations that are created for them. And we ended up creating uh, one for every one of the verticals. Medical spas is a vertical, salon chains is a vertical. So
Mhm.
it's a wonderful combination of something like a YouTube playlist plus an AI combined type of experience that we launched for them.
Yep.
And when we launched, very soon after, what we saw was the time to conversion was cut in half. So
Right.
previously, it would take a lead coming on their website 35 days to get to the closed won status in their Salesforce system. That became 18 days,
Nice.
which is a dramatic success story.
Yeah.
And now every lead that comes through their website goes and sees an AI-driven demo first before actually even scheduling a conversation with a salesperson. That creates lots of clarity in the mind of the prospect before even having a sales conversation. So the number of sales conversations required are fewer. The
Right.
conversations are far more effective and they close so much faster. And you actually qualify customers in the process better because you know from the engagement with the demo, the videos they watch, the question they ask, exactly whether a particular person is a qualified prospect for engagement in the sales conversation even. So that was a really good success story. And so now that customer is deploying, 6 AIs right now and going to deploy many, many more. And now you have a bit of a land and expand story happening.
Mhm.
So they got value out of it. They deployed it on the website. They're getting metrics that show it's working. And now that becomes a foundation for their sales operations.
Got it. Yeah. Uh, so would you say that that ICP, at least the way it stands right now, for Creators AGI is more of a mid-market or a large enterprise level company versus an early stage?
It's every stage, but I think you probably need to be constrained by sales before you can
Mhm.
spend enough on this one,
Yeah.
right? And so, and you're starting a sales operation. You can't have enough people demonstrating a product. Your
Right.
product needs to be demonstrated for people to buy.
Yeah.
And if you are in that sweet spot, then you have a very good value you can get out of this product.
Understood. And who is typically the buyer person or the buying champion? Is it more of the in the CMO office or the CRO office?
It is mostly the CRO and CMOs are invariably involved, but where I am finding it is it's even the CEO. For example, there are conversations that I'm having with private equity portfolio companies and the private equity partners, and that's a
Yeah.
very good example. Private equity leaders really want to drive efficiencies inside their portfolio companies. The portfolio companies have lots of rooms for efficiency in sales.
Mhm.
And AI sales now becomes very attractive so that you have an existing product that now can be really efficiently sold, more efficiently sold. It doesn't eliminate the need for salespeople, it just
Yeah.
amplifies them. So, more efficiently sold with the help of an AI. That is an example of where the sweet spot happens.
Understood. So we covered the go-to-market success story. How about a go-to-market failure slash pivot story now?
So let me take the Creators AGI product itself, and I'll actually try to give some examples from the past as well. So as I mentioned, in the first year, I went after something more creator focused. Now, creators are more like prosumers, but reaching and they're low ticket items, and they are also highly likely to churn, and they are also themselves not necessarily marketers, they are creators, right? They're
Mm,
authors, they are
right.
building things, they are not necessarily marketers. So it wasn't necessarily, although I knew I was going to pivot, it wasn't a success story. It was just very hard to get any amount of traction. So most people wouldn't want to pay, even though they were prosumers. And they were not willing to even market the AI because they didn't know what marketing it was.
Yeah.
And so that is an example of how a place where you had to pivot away from.
Understood. And if you were to go back in time at your Microsoft or Amazon days or whichever, any other
Yeah.
success or a
Let's take
pivot story that
Microsoft.
comes to you?
Yeah, Microsoft days. Very often the challenge with Microsoft type products was we were early innovators. And the go-to-market portion of early innovation products was challenged because the marketing teams of Microsoft typically were not aligned or very good at marketing novel products.
Mm-hmm.
So very often people ask, why isn't Microsoft more innovative?
Yeah.
It's actually not that Microsoft is not innovative. They're actually very good, and they're one of the technology companies that are at the cutting edge of innovation, and they've had Microsoft research for the longest time, etc.
Yeah.
I think in the marketing of those innovations, that was not where the marketing and sales organization were typically incentivized.
Mm.
And the unique differentiation or the differentiated value of these innovative products would not be coming out because
Yeah.
of that. And whereas many other companies with far less technology were far better, especially many companies in the Bay Area
Hmm.
are far better at bringing innovation to market, not
Yes.
just creating the innovation.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. And you used a word I want to highlight, which is super important, especially when it comes to go to market, which is incentivized, right? Which is incentivized if you translate into go to market world, and typically for sales organization, it's commission and where they have the biggest commission incentives. And that's what typically drives the go to market aspects.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
correct. And the only way Microsoft got over that to some extent was by doing what's called attach sales.
Yeah.
So every innovative product, they would force you to attach it to an existing motion. So the existing customers would be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And that worked on a number of cases, but it wouldn't actually necessarily work on truly innovative products.
For
So if
sure.
you were to create even something like Azure Machine Learning, what do you attach it to? Do you attach it to a SQL Server motion? Do you attach it to an Office motion? Do you attach it to Dynamics?
Right.
I think all of these things were also hard because now you're not only innovating, but you now have to figure out how, with an existing product motion, this thing would really integrate and why would customers encounter that attachment and start using it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you now, by intersecting many things, you're now making the problem to solve also very complex.
Absolutely. In fact, that reminds me of a previous guest that I had on my podcast, where he was like head of product for one of the security companies at Google.
Mhm.
And he was challenged. I'm not really sure, 100% sure. I'm not able to recall if it's like he was given the incentive, or he was motivated. And knowing him, I know he was motivated to figuring out the commercial aspects of the security product. And so he took on a role where he was the first salesperson. And it's extremely rare. Again, going back to innovative products and highly technical products. And typically, I would see the product management organization or the product management leader, they would take on a role very similar to like an early stage founder and a founder led sales approach. He grew it up to X amount of dollars. And then because he knew the playbook, he could now say, okay, this is the sales leader persona and profile we need, and I could train them.
Correct. And founder-led sales is critical. And if you think founder-led sales is only small companies, CEO-led sales is the standard now in the cloud, in the big company.
Yes.
If you look at Thomas Kurian, who runs Google Cloud, for example, the vast majority of his time is sales, and the amount of time he spends with customers at the CEO levels or senior levels directly,
Yeah.
even with partners. I've heard anecdotal stories that are just amazing in terms of how dedicated he is and how engaged he is and how quickly he turns around things required in a sales process and relationships and partners personally and over the weekend.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. I know we're coming to the closing section, and I still have a few more questions we need to go over. Uh, if you were to pick like one or two go-to markets, because I know you are an expert when it comes to machine learning and AI, but if you were to pick like one or two aspects of the go-to market side of things, what would you highlight? Like your team or peers or someone in the industry they come to you for?
I think today you should leverage AI everywhere possible to create higher quality content and more of it and use that in every interaction with your customers. I think if you're not doing that, you are shortchanging yourself big time. It's not only about creating more content, it's about your own quality of delivery would be much better if you use the state-of-the-art AI and try and automate that as much as possible. And AI helps you reduce response time, create high quality, create clarity. I think that's an incredibly important thing. And that's partly why I am building products like mine, right? value of the AI Envoy from Creators AGI is that it encapsulates all the knowledge that a customer needs to get to develop trust in your product and experience it without it just being dependent upon how good you are at selling the story. The AI does that. But that doesn't mean you can delegate to AI only. AI is your assistant in bringing up quality in your end conversation with the customer, bringing up speed to developing a high quality conversation, and then impressing your customer with all of this capability that you have, whether it be an AI envoy from Creators AGI or others, by just being able to show, hey, this is how we can help you learn about our product, and
Yeah.
through AI and so on, you're setting yourself up at a different level from people who just talk words.
Yeah, no, for sure. In fact, that's a good segue into another topic that comes up during this podcast and which listeners love, which is how do you stay on top of those key aspects and learning areas in your world? I mean, today you talk about AI and we're talking about GTM on this podcast. So, how do you typically stay on top? Do you tap into your peers? There are experts in the industry, podcasts, books, community. What is your go-to when it
Yeah,
comes to staying on top?
fantastic question. I think there is volume and there are nuggets that I learn from peers. So for staying on top of the volume of innovation that is happening, for me, it is X.com first. You follow the right
Mhm.
people. X is incredible right now. And if you really tune your preferences to AI related topics in GTM and things like that, you're getting very personalized results. That's one. Second, invariably that connects to YouTube. There are many people on YouTube podcasts and others
Yep.
that really go depth. So that's volume. And then it is my network of peers that when you encounter them, and a small number of cases where I'm in events talking to people where you get signal. So the value of peers is you get quick signal to noise, much higher signal to noise, and you get quick signals on various things. It's really between these three that, one, I develop background knowledge, I understand the state of the art. I, of course, post as well occasionally on X and LinkedIn, and then I engage with peers, and that gives me not only the knowledge but a confidence I need to stay on track with something I'm doing.
Yeah. And you brought up a very important concept, Joseph, which is signals, right? I mean, yes, in your head, you might form perspectives or a hypothesis, but then how do you really test it out with your target market? And that's where signals
Yeah,
come
very,
in.
very important, right? The signal, you're doing a hypothesis validation, but you shouldn't trust your own echo chamber. I think I had to articulate it to an end customer. Also, look at what those folks are actually doing. What are they encountering? You have to have lots of conversations that in the conversation, if you're steering on the right topics, then you immediately get high quality signal to validate,
Yeah.
help point you in certain directions, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So, looking back at your career, I mean, you've had an amazing success story across large brands, and then now you have your own startup. If you were to pick like one or 2 months, two moments rather, not months, but one or two moments which really broke you down, which was hard on you, and how you came about or came around, that'd be great if you can share that.
Yeah. I think, let me actually tell a positive story, some of the things that shaped my career, and I'll come to some of the harder ones. So, very early on in my career, I was a first-time manager in agency software. And one of the transformatory things was my VP at the time sent me to a project management class, believe it or not. I'd never, as a researcher, scientist, gone
Yeah.
to project management. And this was taught by someone who had been a very long time project manager at Boeing
Hmm.
and had incredible experience about the complexity of bringing a product to market like a Boeing aircraft,
Correct.
the supply chain, the complexity of
Yep.
bringing it together, how you manage risk in the development, how you communicate it, everything. And that was very eye-opening to me because I found that a product exercise was not just about building the technology, but there was an entire set of processes that was critical to making that a usable, saleable, reliable product, and that there was a lot of things that went into design of that engine.
Yep.
And that was very, very eye-opening. And subsequently, all my management careers were informed, and I had sort of taken it to heart. So it internally steered me in so many ways. That was a very transformative moment. Um,
But what is a moment where you actually, it really pushed you hard and you had to dig deep?
uh, so let's take even examples at Compass, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get a platform product like this adopted by real estate agents,
Mm-hmm.
that itself was hard
Yeah.
because real estate agents are more focused on, less focused on the value of software and much more focused on personal interaction,
Right.
very focused on talking to people. And so one thing we had to really figure out was where is the value that they would appreciate.
Mm.
And it ended up as not, in fact, they turned out to be less focused on top line and ROI, and they were still very much focused on, okay, give me more time back. Give me a CRM that works for me, that is intelligent. Save me the time in creating brochures. Save me the time in creating these so I can go have more conversations with
Mm-hmm.
customers.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I value. And so figuring that out the hard way, it was not easy.
Cool. And then the final question for you is, if you were to turn back clock and go back to day one of your go-to-market journey, what advice would you give to your younger self, younger Joseph back then?
I think have design partners that are in the ICP much, much earlier. So
Mm-hmm.
develop a conviction about your ideal customers much faster. Go to them very early on, and instead of the journey that I typically went through of let us develop a product and test it with not necessarily ICP, but with another group of customers
Then,
to build as platform with R&D focus, let us, okay, and then pivot. Uh, I think this in the same time frame, I could have figured out a B2B customer base
yeah,
and worked with them. And that was probably the advice to my former self.
very good. Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and stories and insights, Joseph. I'm sure the listeners would have taken notes. I personally have taken a lot of notes that I can apply to in my own world. So thank you so much and good luck to you and the team at Creators AGI.
Thank you very much, Vijay. It's been such a pleasure.
Hi there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the B2B Go-To-Market Leaders Podcast. I have all of the show notes and a full transcript on strativ.com. STRATYVE.com. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get a podcast. Leave a rating and a review. Your comments will help other go-to-market professionals find this podcast.